Let me tell you a fun fact. Within the last 2 centuries, more than 90% of the world's millionaires have been created by investing in real estate. But if done incorrectly, without the right knowledge, required skills, or partners, it can also create a ton of problems and a lot of sleepless nights. You feel like sometimes there are way too many gurus out there trying to sell you on a weekend course, or just too much noise to cut right to the facts? Yup, we did too, and this is why we started this podcast. Our goal is to provide real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and enthusiasts with all of the most recent knowledge, secrets, tips, tricks, and tactics so that you can grow your own portfolios, increase your returns, net worth, and most importantly, create generational wealth for you and your loved ones. Remember, this is your real estate career. Information is your sword and shield, so eat hearty, prepare for battle, and grind your way to victory. My name is Tejas Gosai. I'm joined by my partner, Jeremy Moyer, and we welcome you to the Real Estate Investor MBA podcast.
Welcome back to Real Estate Investor MBA. My name is Jeremy Moyer, one of your hosts. My co-host Tejas and I like to start off all our episodes with a huge thank you to all our listeners. We could not be doing this without you guys, so we really appreciate it. If you have any questions that you want us to address on an episode, or if you want us to review a specific topic, feel free to send those requests to me at jeremy@realestateinvestormba.com. Please be sure to check out our new website, rei.mba. All of our content is there from past episodes. And if you have any interest in staying in contact with us on what we're working on or wanting to get in, please feel free to sign up for our newsletter. It's free to do so. Also, remember to follow us on social media, where we also share more info. We're on all the major platforms with regards to the podcast. We also have a YouTube channel where we post all the interviews as well. Definitely check those out. So now for our guests for today's episode, we had Mike DeHaan on. Mike started his working life in a typical fashion, going to college. And by 26, he was making 6 figures at a cushy corporate job, but he was miserable. Mike decided to jump ship from the corporate world, and he began his journey in real estate as an off-market real estate investor, wholesaling deals. So a few years later, Mike has hired staff and improved his systems to now be doing deals in 9 different markets. Their business model now is to keep the best properties they find and wholesale flip the properties they don't want for the long term. As for now, his rental portfolio consists of 48 doors with an estimated value of just under $10 million. He also has completed over 100 deals in the past 2 years and now generates more passive rental income than he used to make in his 6-figure salary. Mike is also the host of Collecting Keys podcast and runs his own national mastermind, the Instant Investor Program, where he helps investors get right into the action, finding their own off-market opportunities in as little as 2 weeks. So I just came out of this great interview with Mike just a few minutes ago. And man, I feel like we only talked for a couple minutes because we only got through a few topics, but he really went into some depth on what he's currently doing, the systems that he's put in place, the tools that he uses, how he's been able to duplicate that, not just in 1 market, but 9, and grow his business substantially over the last few years. And I really think you guys are going to enjoy this. I hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Real Estate Investor MBA. We're really excited for the guest that we have with us here today, Mike DeHaan. Mike, how you doing?
Doing wonderful. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So Mike, for folks who are not familiar with you, can you just spend the next few minutes telling us a little bit more about yourself and how you got started in real estate?
Yeah. So I am wholesaler for the most part. So that's like a big part of our business, but ultimately I am a sort of all scale real estate investor focusing almost specifically in off-market opportunity generation. So even though we wholesale a lot of properties, I also do a lot of flips. I own a decent rental portfolio, all of which we've gotten off-market. And, we do this currently in 9 different markets. How I got into real estate, I didn't come from a real estate family. I didn't really have any major background in real estate at all. I went to school originally, got an engineering degree and did that for a period of time. Worked for about 5 years as a professional engineer. And then I decided that I didn't like that. So I quit and just tried to get into anything else. When I first left my job, I literally had no plan and I kind of just jumped ship and just figured that, I was miserable after 5 years doing what I was doing. So anything was going to be better than that, even having no money. So I just kind of went for it, which was, not the easiest decision as you can imagine, but it worked out pretty well. So, dabbled in things for a few years there, tried to get into tech, got into tried different consulting businesses, e-commerce, you name it, anything that could be sold as like a get rich quick scheme by some Instagram guru. I was all over that. And then I ultimately ended up getting into real estate, mostly because I was reading a lot of business books and wealth generation books. And you can't get through any of that sort of material without real estate sort of being a common topic. I didn't necessarily know how real estate investing worked. I didn't know how, to really analyze properties, what it really meant for an investment to be good. And at this point it was late 2018, 2019. So, the market hadn't exploded like it has now. So you could spend time or, looking at different properties, walking through things with realtors and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately what I ended up doing, I decided hey, I want to buy some properties. I want some passive income. That was my goal, as it always is for everybody when you start, is I wanted cash flow that was going to replace my old salary at that point, especially because I didn't have any regular income. My main income at that point, because I'd quit my engineering job, was working in a gym as a weightlifting coach. And then I would drive for Uber. And so I went from making $100,000 a year. I think in 2018, I had the number written down here. I think it was about 16,000 across all that said and done. So pretty big hiccup there. So but anyway, end of 2018, I said I was going to buy these properties. I had a pretty healthy corporate 401k that I had built up from my time as an engineer. So I liquidated that, paid all the fees, and used it to buy my first couple of houses. Those became my first rental properties. And then shortly after that, I started to get the bug as I was getting some mailbox money coming in. So I started going to meetups, started connecting with other people, and decided that I needed more capital to keep buying more rental properties. So I started flipping houses. That was 2019. I flipped 3 houses, I guess, back then, and started a 4th one, which I finished up in 2020. But back then, again, I didn't have any money. So I would essentially just partner with people. They would bring the money. I'd bring the hustle, and we would just split things 50-50. Made a little bit of money doing that, bought another rental. And then at the end of 2019, early 2020, I decided I want to pursue it full time. So I joined a mastermind course about finding off-market properties and started my business, which I currently run today, which, now it started with me and my business partner, just kind of doing everything, wearing all hats, doing lead generation, running sales, running negotiations, all that sort of stuff. And now we do it in 9 different markets, and I have 17 employees. So
Nice.
You're growing pretty.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're out west, right? Is the majority of your market out in that general vicinity?
So all of my portfolio, for the most part, is in Eastern Washington, where I live in Spokane. We do a lot of our local business, and where our business started was in Eastern Washington and North Idaho. Now, as we've expanded, we're kind of all over the country. So, everywhere from the Midwest to the South. We do some stuff in Texas. You gotta name it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So it seems like your bread and butter is marketing and finding these off-market deals and that. So I hear off-market, and I'm always interested in hearing different investors' inventiveness, I guess I would say, in finding those deals, right? Because there's always different ways of doing it. And I'm curious on how you are competing in this very competitive environment right now. What are you doing differently from your competition? How are you finding these? Because for your bio, you guys closed a lot of deals over the last couple of years. I think the listeners would be very interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah. So as of about 2 weeks ago, we crossed our 130th deal since we started.
That's great.
So yeah, that's just over about 2.5 years for 130 transactions. And I would say a huge number of those were over the last 12 months. I think the first 12 months we did 16, and then the second 12 months we did 60 something, 68 maybe. So the thing that a lot of people do wrong when they first start marketing for deals is they try to find the secret marketing method that's going to make them more interesting than every other person. And it makes sense why people do that, because everyone comes into it and they're so focused on there being an action and a response. And I don't know, I think part of this kind of came from our mastermind, but part of it just kind of came from me studying the process of what other people were doing, and especially the people that it wasn't working for versus the ones that it was working for. But we ultimately decided to go into the marketing, and we still do this with the tried and true, just super basic marketing tactics. So, we run direct mail, we do some texting, we do a little bit of cold calling, the most basic fundamental stuff. And instead, where we have made ourselves competitive is we are extremely dependent on our brand and our reputation. So, as we went through the process of building our business, a lot of people, I think it kind of starts because they get embarrassed about the fact that they're going to be offering people 60% of value for their houses. So they try to create this veil, and they'll be like, I'm ABC Home Buyers. They have like a very templated website that looks the same as every other website. They kind of keep their names off of stuff, or they'll only use their first name. They try to have like this removal from stuff. But we sort of took the opposite approach. And when we started our business, we, got a professional website built. We have our photos on it. We have Google reviews. We are very deliberate about documenting stuff that we're working on getting conversations and referrals from other sellers. And we've continued that same concept as we've expanded these other markets. So now, even in these other places where they know that we're not local, there's a paper trail that shows our success record with different sellers over the last several years. So when someone goes and they get, 15 pieces of mail in a week from every other wholesaler in town, they go and they look up a handful of them, they come across us and we're instantly going to look more credible by them, right? So that's kind of been like our biggest bread and butter. Is I took the feedback that a lot of people had around wholesalers and off-market investors having a bad reputation and just said like, why don't we just not be those people? Let's just be like the trustworthy ones. And that's led to us having a lot of success, especially in the retail market where people, a lot of people that you're dealing with, they have some sort of distress in their life for the most part. They're used to being taken advantage of by the system in some way, or at least in their minds they are, right? Whether that's the local government, the police, their neighbors, the HOA, whatever it is, their tenants. There's someone that they don't trust. And if you can come in and instead be the one thing that's stable in the whole situation, they're a lot more likely to work with you. And you don't have to go and try to invent these absurdly complex marketing methods, people trying to use like, AI to generate leads, or getting way into like the depths of these data systems and things like that, trying to find like that little gold nugget that's buried in public data. Like it's not rocket science. You build a business brand, you lean on that brand, you establish credibility and reputation. And then from there, you'd be surprised how many opportunities you can get on a regular basis.
No, that makes, as you break that down, listen to you speak, it makes tremendous sense. There's try and true methods, in finding, drumming up off market deals. Don't need to compete there. You just do what works. But then it's almost like you reverse engineered the backside of all not the negatives, but like maybe it's the negatives, as you mentioned, but it's really, if I'm receiving that piece of mail, what red flags go off in my head, right? As the person looking to sell, they're going to go online first, and like that reputation, the branding, focus there, differentiate yourself there, and everything else takes kind of care of itself. That's really interesting, man. It's really smart.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of it too comes down to, people having limiting self-beliefs on if they, kind of imposter syndrome of like, should they really be the person that can buy these deals? Or maybe they're limited on funds, so they don't want to spend money on like more premium marketing. They want to send cheapo yellow letters that say like, you're going to go into foreclosure. Right. If you don't call me, which is also, pretty fraudulent because you're misleading these people on the situation. Yeah. But, when they get something like that versus they get from us, they get a trifold in the mail that comes in an envelope that is, has a letter in there that is written with a pen. We use these companies that use robots to pen everything. So it'll be there. It'll be signed by me, and it'll have a trifold that has all the information about our business on it. So they're going to get a handwritten looking letter that's written by our business, as well as the trifold with every piece of information that they could need. Who are they going to pick? That or the guy that sent the yellow letter that said you're going to go to foreclosure if you don't call this 800?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they look you up online and then they see other pictures. That's the guy's name versus, wait, the same company built all those websites.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You have a care website that looks exactly the same as everyone else's, like direct to TV, whatever. Yeah. It's a
No, it's brilliant, man. No, that's great. I mean, it's so simplistic as you just kind of talk through it. I know we're running out of time, so I want to have a bunch of other questions for you. So, I mean, going to 9 markets, obviously you probably started out near yourself, right? It just makes sense. And then as you're getting into different markets, you need systems. And you mentioned that in your bio, you had a bunch of new employees. You guys are closing on all these deals. Kind of walk us through the different systems that you have now. And then if someone's listening to this, you're like, I want to do exactly what Mike is doing. Do you need all these systems from day one, or is this something you can build into? Can you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So first off, it's definitely something you can build into. And when you look at the core of this kind of business, there's kind of like there's the 3 systems, right? There's the marketing system, there's the lead acquisition and follow-up system, and the disposition system. And they're all incredibly dependent on each other, but they're all relatively independent, like how much crossover there is in knowledge base. and how much sort of works with each other. And so many people, they focus on the acquisition system because that feels like it's the hardest, especially when they're starting out, because they are the ones who are out there talking to the sellers. But one of the big issues that I think a lot of people run into is they struggle with that and they feel like it's where the money's made. But really, that's one of the most outsourceable tasks that you can have, because every relationship that you're establishing with the seller is fresh. So if you get like a good salesperson, you get some good lead managers, which we have virtuals for ours, you can do that pretty well. And then same with the marketing system. A lot of people focus on that. And then when really that's a very repeatable task that's easy to outsource. But where the real money is made in this business is by having good dispositions, which is probably the hardest one to outsource because it's very dependent on relationships. Mm-hmm. So I used to backtrack on it really fast. So our marketing system, pulling data, ordering marketing, organizing like the marketing sequence, all that sort of stuff. That's one system that we built out, which is very similar across every market and is predominantly run by virtuals and then sort of overseen by me. We have the acquisition system, which is basically everything that comes into our CRM, people that call in off of our marketing, they engage with us off of our outbound marketing. So on that one, we have our skilled sales staff, most of which don't have an experience in real estate, which we will find really interesting. We find people that are strong sales individuals, or like they have really strong people skills. So one of our best acquisition managers we have was actually a bartender. And they come in and they're just really good at people and listening to people's nonsense, right? So, like that, we have American-based acquisition managers who all work remotely. And then we have lead managers that are all virtuals that basically do make sure notes are up to date, do answer text messages that come in through our system that acquisition managers might not see, that sort of stuff. And then the most challenging part, especially in new markets, is disposition, which is selling the contracts or figuring out the exit strategy for the contracts you're going to have. And with those, you kind of have to establish a relationship with the local investor base. And you also have to know the neighborhoods and the processes for those different communities, because every single one is going to have different, rules around things like development. They're going to have different rules around like having rental properties versus, what you can do when you flip properties, like all this sort of stuff. And when we first started going remote, we found that was the most challenging thing because we'd built out the marketing and acquisition system. When you go to dispositions, first off, local investors don't necessarily like outside investors coming in and like encroaching on their turf. They get a little bit competitive. And secondly, knowing the neighborhoods is so exceedingly difficult when you're trying to do everything off of Google. You're going by the word of mouth of the sellers who, their best interest is to offload the property if someone's going to pay too much for it. Right. And then finding people that were actually like willing to close, able to close and like had a track record themselves locally was super hard when no one else knows you in that area. Like no one really gives you the time of day. So those are kind of the three phases. And the way that we were able to scale, the first couple markets that we started to go to, we would try to run everything ourselves. And then after, a couple attempts at that, like we made some money the first couple of virtual places that we went, but it was just a drag. So we kind of shifted and said, what if we got rid of the disposition piece and we strictly find like a key partner? We build a really strong relationship with like one of the best buyers in the area and we just work for them. And essentially what we do is we run the whole marketing and acquisitions process just for whoever that premium buyer is in that area. And then, if they want it, we just organize a fee and they can have it. They want to like find another person, we'll split the deal with them. And we give up some of our bottom line for that. But at the same time, we no longer have all these questions on the monetization part of the contract, right? They kind of handle it for us. And instead of trying to learn, 9 different markets, we can just scale the marketing and acquisition system, which is very easy to do because we have the processes and we can just hire people to fill those spots. So does that kind of answer your question? I kind of went in a tangent.
It does. That makes a lot of sense because as you were speaking, I was curious on how you guys overcome the challenges on the disposition side, and you went right into that answer, and that's smart. So I was thinking of a different question, and I think I might know your answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Is it the relationships in those different markets, the key indicators on going into a new market, or are there other metrics that you guys are looking into first on the market and then trying to develop that relationship? Or it could be both. I don't know.
Yeah. So when we first started, we would look at specific markets, population growth, things like that. And then we would try to establish a relationship with somebody there. But since we've grown, we're very involved in the investor community nationwide. between me and my partner, we go to a lot of, meetups, things like that, sort of around or in different mastermind groups. And after the first couple and word of mouth sort of started to get out that they were having some success, it honestly came to people come to us. So now kind of how we run it is people approach us and they say like, hey, I want to start, I want to partner with you in this market. Do you think that would make sense? And then we will go and, do a market analysis, see if we think it'll work there. And then we just, partner with them. So we don't really even necessarily choose outside of, I think after our third one, we didn't choose any other markets. They kind of chose us.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. Find the person and then the marketing's duplicatable, right? If you have a system, just do it. Yeah, that's tremendous. So, again, I'm trying to put myself in the position of a new investor or investor that's looking to get a wholesaling, or maybe they have a wholesaling business and they're struggling and they're like, I need to put systems together. And what you said sounds great. Is there specific tools? You mentioned the AI handwriting tool, right? I mean, is there specific tools that you're willing to share?
Yeah. I mean, we use all the main players in the industry. So, like for most of our data, we just pull it straight off PropStream. Just like, you watch any YouTube wholesaler, they'll say, this is how you find all these lists on PropStream. We do that. We tweak things a little bit outside of some of the lists for different things that we do, but super basic there. The CRM we use is RE Simply, which is like a CRM that's built for off-market real estate and wholesalers. So that's great. And then for all of our mail, we have like a copy sequence that we use every 6 months that we kind of recycle. I would say if anything, that's probably our IP is the copy that we have in there because it's sort of regimented out. It builds a story brand around us, but we will send either Open Letter Marketing is like the main company that we use, or Ballpoint Marketing, which, has a similar handwritten product. And I mean, it's not anything crazy. Like there's no big secrets. Like I said, we really just do the standard stuff and we focus heavily on having a stronger brand and a better follow-up process. And that's how we're able to be competitive. So
sure. No, that's tremendous. Thanks. So I always like to ask this last question. I know we feel like we've only been talking for a few minutes and time's just gone by, but I always like to ask those that I talk to, like, if, again, I put myself in the seat of the listener, if I'm new or I'm looking to get into this and I'm trying to listen to these podcasts, and what is that one thing that I need to do now? Like I just listened to this. Is there something actionable other than go educate yourself, right? The education is key. So I'm not saying it's not key. That's super key. But is there something that a listener could be listening to this podcast, they listen to you, everything you said, Mike, just clicks with them. What could they do right now that's actionable that can move them closer to their goals, to closing their next deal or their first deal? What would that piece of advice you give them?
Yeah. So I know you said rather than just go educate yourself. I mean, I would say the biggest thing that most real estate investors fail to do, most people, they go and they educate themselves on real estate, which is awesome. Go educate yourself on sales and like how to actually have sales conversations, sales tactics. So I know it's like sort of go out and learn, but I think that's outside the norm of just like go and learn whatever. Cause like that was the biggest turning point for us, especially when me and my business partner started. We really struggled getting off the ground. We're both engineers. We would go into these properties and we would focus on the asset, the hard asset, and we would be sitting in the kitchen of a widower and we would be saying like, yeah, so your kitchen's outdated. It needs a new roof. There's plumbing problems. And we would just basically tell them why their house sucks. And we would say, we can give you this much. And you want to know what? Our conversion was horrible. Right? Exactly. But you don't think about that when you're going in with the real estate front of your mind, right? So when we learned sales and we made the realization that, especially if you're going to do off-market residential real estate, 95% of the time, the things that do not matter are the house and the price. And everyone always wants to focus on the house and the price, but those are more often than not, they are not like important at all. Like what it comes down to is what's the person's problem and how can you help solve it? Right. And like, is their timeline appropriate for what you need it to be for yourself? Because there'll be people that you can help, they want you to help them, but it's going to take a year. And then it's like, do I really want to go on that path? I don't know. But you have people that they have a problem that makes them want to sell the property to you rather than going on the market. Is it something you can actually help them with and you're willing to help them with? And will they do it in the next 3 months? And you learn how to have that conversation and build that rapport around that instead of it being like, I'm going to buy your house for 60 cents on the dollar. That is going to be super major. So learning sales in order to understand that, I think is incredibly critical.
No, that's a great answer. I didn't even know it's more education, right? It's the sales aspect. I mean, if you think about it, we're all salespeople in some shape or form, right? So I guess for those that are non-salesy, go find a bartender.
Yeah.
Right, that you could partner with that are good with people. I mean, people skills are key. So That's great, man. So is there anything in closing, Mike, how our listeners can to learn more about what you're doing, follow you on social media? I know you're huge on Instagram. I follow you. You put out really good content. How can they in touch with you and so forth? You can share whatever you want.
Yeah. So I have my own podcast. It's called the Collecting Keys Podcast. It's a, real estate focused podcast that's really focused on how to run a full-time off-market business, or how to find off-market leads, even if you don't want to run a business full-time, but you want to create opportunities for yourself. So we have that, we go into everything from, complex business processes to, you want to market part-time. These are great ways to do it. And sort of like how to build those structured systems and processes so that you're not like trying to juggle all these different things. So Collecting Keys Podcast, go check that out. And besides that, if you want to reach out to me directly, you can follow me on Instagram at Mike_invests, or you can shoot me an email at mike@collectingkeyspodcast.com.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll definitely connect that in the show notes. So Mike, once again, thanks so much for your time today. We really enjoyed having you on the show. I'm Jeremy Moyer with Real Estate Investor MBA. Please be sure to tune in within this next time. We'll see you guys then. Thank you. Nice.